Listen up. There's no more excuses.
We're empowering those who want the hustle by exposing the status quo.
The days of ordinary are over.
It's time to crush mediocrity and start discovering your greatest potential.
Welcome to the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle.
Welcome back to another episode of the Hustle Nation podcast. Today, as always, we've got a real treat. Mr. Adam Robinson is in the house. Adam is CEO at retention.com and RB2B. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Chris. I'm excited to be here.
Excited to have you. I think you're the first guy to be on the show who's really in the SaaS business. So let's get into it. Tell us a little bit about retention.com and RB2B.
So retention.com, we sell software to e-commerce stores. And what that software does is it identifies anonymous website visitors. And it takes that person, if they didn't fill out a form, it takes them down to an email address, even though they didn't give it to you. And then we can give it to the e-commerce store, and the e-commerce store can use that to do all sorts of crazy stuff. Like send somebody a card abandonment email, even if they never had the email in the first place. Pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah.
How's that legal?
Yeah.
No, it's like that. And then everybody, the first time you ever hear about it, that is what you think. And then, but it is in the US, it's US only technology. So RB2B, it's the same general idea, except instead of selling to e-commerce stores, we sell to people who have sales teams. And instead of resolving it to a deliverable consumer email address, we resolve it to a LinkedIn profile and a business email address. And it's a freemium offering. So it's like a free push. Somebody hits your site, I'll push that profile to Slack in real time. If you know what Slack is, like Slack Teams, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. It's amazing. It's 2 months old. I've never been a part of anything that has had such a viral adoption.
It's amazing.
Super cool. Yeah.
Are you making this up? Is this real?
Exactly. I mean, but that's why it's so viral and crazy. It's like, what do you mean you can get the LinkedIn profile of someone who was on my site and didn't fill out a form and push it to Slack for free? Like, of course I want that.
For sure.
You know?
For sure.
Like, I would really love to email that person and connect with them on LinkedIn and see if I could get them on the phone to sell them something. That's,
Love it.
I understand.
So Adam, how did you get here? Right. So your SaaS company, viral adoption, like what was your journey to get to this point?
Well, the medium length story is I graduated college in 2003. And I started working at an investment bank called Lehman Brothers that no longer exists. And if you've been alive for a while, you would know that that was it's now defunct, and it was the center of the financial crisis in 2008. I was a credit default swap trader, which was largely responsible for the crisis that happened in 2008. That not me, the product category was. And
I was gonna say, there's been movies written about this.
Yeah. And like, if you, so The Big Short is like, that's the job that I had. People in that book were like my boss and stuff. And like, they did a pretty good job at capturing that world, like really sort of, it had a pretty good representation of what life was like then. So the interesting part of all of this is I show up in New York, a high school friend connected me with these guys, these 4 guys. We were sharing this big apartment down in Tribeca. And these guys are working on a website. And it's called Vimeo.com, the video sharing website. So like these guys, exactly. So like these guys, literally I walked into a room on the first day when this guy, Zach Klein, was making the first mock-up of the first homepage of Vimeo. And the other guy, Jake, who I'm still friends with, I'm seeing him tomorrow, he lives in Austin. He was the engineer, and they were like, he was like a content creator also. And he was like, yeah, I think people are going to want to share video. I'm like, this is like the future. Going to work. Dropbox isn't going to work for this. You're going to like whatever. So as you can imagine, I had a really great Wall Street career. Never had if you were in the center of that universe at that time, you just were lucky and everyone killed it. But those guys, I didn't have vocabulary for it at the time. I just sensed that they were getting more out of their life than I was. Because at the end of the day, when you are working on Wall Street, almost with no exception, there's one reason you're doing it. It's to make as much money as possible. If you made a certain amount of money, you would not go to work. Like, that's just it. So after the financial crisis, I'd saved some dough. I just wanted to pursue this life that I observed that they had. And I wanted to start a company in that apartment that I held on to the apartment. It was great. Like, it started off as 5 guys, and then slowly as I became more successful, it whittled down to just me. And I started a company in that same apartment. And I mean, that it was just, so like from when I decided I wanted to leave finance in September of 2011. So I actually stuck around at Barclays, who bought Lehman, for a couple of years after. Had one great year, one horrible year, got paid zero. And I was like, well, now I'm screwed. Basically, I was like, long story short, when that happens to you, when you get donutted, it kind of messes up the next 5 years of your life. So I was like, I don't really want to do this anymore. I saved a ton of money. I'm going to take this money and see if I can start a company. That was where I was at. And man, I just can't describe how awful that is in many ways, because the hardest thing is when there is infinity opportunity in front of you, narrowing down on a path to pursue. I had zero skills related to anything that I could start a company doing, right? Like, when people ask me if they want to be entrepreneurs, what they should do graduating college, I'm like, either get really, really good at selling, or become an engineer and learn how to build, or there's this new thing that I now know about as an entrepreneur for 12 years, product. Like, learn product, how to synthesize information from customers and then communicate that to people who know how to build. Like, start there in a startup that is good. Because then you can gain a bunch of skill and hopefully recognize market opportunity, and then take that skill that you got on someone else's nickel, jump ship, and start a startup in a way that would not be nearly as painful as I started mine. Knowing none of this, right? I mean, SaaS is so hard. I'm so lucky that it worked, and grateful and all of this. But yeah, I mean, I started my first company. We had the quote unquote idea in February of 2012. We actually launched a product in January of 2014. It was an email newsletter app for very small business. And then I didn't pay myself $1 for 5 years. That's how long it took for me to like pay myself a salary again. And it was horrible. And it was like that first product and company that I had. I mean, there's purpose in the struggle. And it was a very, the lessons that I have learned from all of that have obviously made me like get to a point where I can say things like I just said. But man, it was hard. It was like, the product market fit is a term that gets used a lot in SaaS and software, and like, we didn't have it. So when you don't have it, everything you do feels like you're pushing on a string. When you do have it, everything you do feels like you're behind a boat holding on to like a water skiing toe or whatever, wakeboarding toe, and you're just going, and it's like, you're just scooping up like whatever you can scoop up, everything works. But when you don't have it, it's brutal. And my first company didn't have it. And, basically we had this strategy which got us to a few million in revenue, and it was profitable, but it was like slowly shrinking, and that's a horrible place to be. So I spent a few years trying to figure out what the industry leader wasn't doing in this like horribly competitive and saturated space that I was in. And it eventually led me to like these companies that I'm working on right now, like a somewhat novel technology. Like, I explained it to you guys, you're like, what? Like, that's where it ended up. Not easy, very long and winding road. Not for the faint of heart. Wouldn't have it any other way. That kind of thing,
So one of the things I wonder anytime you're talking about a SaaS company founder, right, is, to your point, are you good at sales? Are you good at tech? Curious, as you were kind of going down this path, I feel like that's oftentimes where people fall down, is they struggle finding the people that fill in their gaps. And so just curious, like how you solve for that and kind of your mindset as you approach that.
So there's a few things that are incredibly difficult about SaaS. One, you're alluding to. If you are not a technical co-founder, where do you find one? By some act of God, my brother swam at Stanford University, and a guy that swam with him and was also a comp sci major was sick of this job he had in an insurance company. So my CTO for 12 years has been an all-American swimmer who is also a Stanford comp sci guy. If you can imagine the level of human being of that. I did not really appreciate how amazing this guy, and by the way, he's a superpower individual contributor, can't manage anyone, doesn't huge, like we have dev teams that are managed by other people, but he can just spin up an entire new website that turns into a company in 8 weeks or something, right? Now that we know how to build stuff. Yeah. So a problem is when, and by the way, I could probably at this point, 12 years in with the track record that I have, go find a technical co-founder because they're willing to bet on me, I think. I haven't had to try, but I think that's the case. Your first company, you're not going to get anyone worthwhile willing to bet on you. So you go try to get it built at an agency, which everyone, I did it my first time too, before Tate joined full time. It's always a disaster every time. I've never heard of it not being a disaster. Like a SaaS attempted to be built by an agency because you could not find a good co-founder. And there's no solution. I mean, I don't know. There's maybe some websites that help you pair up with co-founders with different skills or whatever, but it's just hard. That's kind of like a hard part. There's so much working against you in the beginning. That's one of the things. Mm-hmm. Another thing about SaaS in particular is it can get magical when you get past when you get to thousands of dollars per month that you're charging people, because generally the people that are paying that, it's almost in a weird way easier to sell someone something for $2,000 a month than it is for something for $30 a month, just because of who's buying it in a strange way. Yep. But rarely can you start there, because you kind of need some kind of a brand for those people to waste their time with you. So most people, I know I did, you have to start with these SaaS companies charging $15 a month. And the nature of the buyer of something that you charge $15 a month, there's super high churn. So not only does it take a ton of $15 a month subscribers to pay salaries, the leaky bucket dynamic is much worse than when you figure out a way to work your way at market. But a lot of SaaS starts there, starts at SMB at $15 a month, they end up selling enterprise, just because the higher you work your way up market, the lower the churn, and in a weird way, the easier it is to sell people. So yeah, those are the two fundamental problems starting a SaaS company. If people ask me if they should start a SaaS company with no prior experience, my recommendation is that you do something else first. You learn how to make money being some type of a consultant or sell, info products or something. Learn how to create marketing for something, get someone to pay you for it, service that person, make sure they're happy, grow that business a little bit before you even think about starting a SaaS with no prior relevant experience. If you work at SaaS companies for a long time and you spend some time at a really early stage and you understand what it's all about, great. Knock yourself out. Do it. It's just really hard. I mean, it's easier to make the companies now because there's so many SaaS companies have made it easy to start SaaS companies, but in general, you still face these problems of there's business acumen involved. The degree of difficulty of executing a SaaS business is higher than a one-man consultancy, let's say. Substantially.
Yeah, for sure.
Makes sense.
So how did you go about building your team beyond that, right? So, a lot of times one of the challenges with SaaS is they can be hyper growth, and building a cohesive team, building culture, and oftentimes a remote setting can often be a big challenge. So how have you approached that?
I would say poorly. So
I love the honesty.
it's just, so like my first company, we had this strategy that got us to a few million. It involved kind of like a boiler room style call center. It got to where we couldn't feed any more leads into it. So it shrunk to like 6. My next company, I was like, I don't want a call center ever again. I didn't like the culture of it. I didn't like the churn and burn nature with people. So we kept it super lean. And then a year and a half ago, I thought it was like unicorn territory. So we hired we went from like 6 to 60 people in like a couple months. It was bad. It was just not good. And so like, I didn't even know why, it wasn't good, but like, I'm now working with an executive coach who's meeting with 8 people on our team, all the people that run the different teams. We have like 60 people now or something like that. And we're rolling out EOS. Don't know if you've ever heard of it. Entrepreneurial.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So until I hired a very experienced COO a year and a half ago, and he kept trying to roll out OKRs, and it just didn't really stick. And for us in particular, the EOS thing standardizes all of that in a way to where, and we have a guy helping us roll it all out, which is incredible. But I now know what it means to have processes. Until we rolled this out, I did not know. I would hear people say those words, and I thought that I understood what the words meant. And I did understand what the words meant. I just didn't know that what I was doing was not that. Does that make sense? So we hired a bunch of like high flyers from all these different places while we didn't really have our way of doing it. And then they brought in their ways and it was like a total mess. So that's why I say poorly. I think we're, 6 months to, we've been at it for like 6 weeks right now, this EOS thing. I think we're probably like a year away from somebody looking at our company and saying that company operates excellently, just like in the way that it, if you're kind of winging it, I think one of the biggest problems you have highly productive individual contributors that got you that first whatever. They don't really have much management experience, and they don't understand why when you hire people, those people don't do things exactly like they do. And they are not able to articulate. Expectations is the big word, right? Like role definition and expectations for us is like the biggest problem we're working through right now. Like just getting, and then I think, you can just see how like once that piece gets very clearly defined, at least I can see, a lot of the frustration between managers and, individual contributors, I think will go away. Anyway, yeah.
No, I think that's great. One of the quotes we pull up in our company a lot of times is, today's unset expectations is tomorrow's resentment.
Yes.
Right. Because it's a lot of times we might say them in our head, but if we don't communicate them to anyone, then guess what? They don't know what they are. And, to your point, you can't always, you got to let people be empowered on the how, but what the result is, what the direction is, you need to communicate that so people understand what the expectations are.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So, as you're talking about kind of hopping around and hyper growth and this great opportunity in front of you. So I doing the book from Traction with Gina Wickman, EOS, that's obviously a big piece. What has been your experience, the couple of things that you can anticipate now as you've scaled up businesses?
So it is the question like versus when I started, like areas where my intuition has improved. Is that
for sure
generally what you're going for? So I think that there's I'm creating a new business right now within our business, this RB2B thing. And I'm realizing that it's like my favorite stage because it's just what I love doing. And I think over the years, my ability to, before I start like sending a signal out and getting signal back from the market, like whatever it is, talking, email, phone calls, whatever, I would say my intuition has not gotten better about what will and won't work, but my ability to identify what is a worthwhile opportunity after spending like a few months talking to people in a market and how good it is like night and day better. There's a great book about starting software companies called 4 Steps to the Epiphany. I'm not sure if anyone's ever heard of that. It is fantastic. And the whole idea is most people think that the way to build software companies is you build the software and then you launch it and then you go find your customers. Whereas the way to reduce risk is as you're building, you are literally putting the buyers together. If you can get them to pay you before the product exists, you have one person building, one person constantly talking to the market about what your hypothesis, which is what you're building, whether it's true or not. So I think I've just gotten like good at that process, and I use different tools now or whatever. And then just really understanding, kind of like Charlie Munger. I love this guy. And he's like got this expression that he calls Lollapalooza effects. God rest, RIP.
Yep.
But it's like there are forces in the world that when combined with other forces, it's like kind of 1 + 1 = 3,
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. Like I have been making founder brand content on LinkedIn, which is just me being a LinkedIn influencer, for lack of a better word. I got really good at it, and it's aimed at the audience for RB2B. It's this megaphone that's incredible, and everybody in the audience is a potential buyer of this. So in determining the go-to-market strategy for it, I originally wanted to, since I was like, well, I have a brand. So like we can actually start in the mid-market and we can like leapfrog this whole, small business, whatever, because of this megaphone. But then I was like, you know what? What would be really valuable is if I had something for free because of this megaphone. And it would be much more valuable for me with this megaphone than it would be for someone else who didn't have this megaphone. So the combination of the kind of virality of the content that I had been creating on LinkedIn with the virality of a product that we're giving away for free that we were thinking about charging 30 or 50 grand per year for is working together to create this spectacular energy and buzz around what we're doing that should not be able to exist for an 8-week-old company, And like,
Yeah.
I had a suspicion that it was possible and it played out, but I never would have even thought this way 10 years ago. That's just like an example of like, it just entrepreneurial intuition and prowess sort of like developing over time.
Yeah.
Adam,
But I think,
can't,
okay, Chris.
go ahead. I can't help but think about the book Ready, Fire, Aim. When you were talking about that customer acquisition and like the chicken and the egg thing, where it's like, do I launch the business or do I go after the customers? And it reminds me a lot of Ready, Fire, Aim, which is, in short form, is basically like building the airplane while you're flying it, right?
Yeah.
And I've always resonated with that, like just go, right? Just shoot.
You gotta
but I'm
go.
really curious. You talk about the personal brand, and as someone who's been a long time marketer, I have a workshop that I do called "Your Business Starts with Your Personal Brand," and the goal is try to get people to build a personal brand on LinkedIn, so that as a byproduct over a couple of years, you have that megaphone that you've created, which is. In other words, I translate it as I'm creating thought leadership content and I'm adding value while giving something away. That is something almost anyone could do, but yet so many people don't. Why does it take people so long to figure that out?
So I think I get asked this question a lot because in the ecosystem that I'm in, I'm like the exemplar make a personal brand for yourself. First post was 18 months ago. Now, whatever. I'm like, my LinkedIn is crushing it. So
You got like 80,000.
Yeah, and like the engagement's fantastic, and it's like it's literally driving this new business. It's the entire marketing channel for it, and it is spectacular what's happening. Like I just can't even believe it. So what I would say is it took a year for it to really click, and the reason it was valuable for it to really click for me is because the buyers of this new product live on LinkedIn. And I am my ICP. So if I can be the best content creator in that world, as I articulate the pain of my journey, it resonates so deeply with these people who are not only my buyers, but they live on the platform. Now, I think there's a whole other set of benefits to do what you're talking about for anybody. And the benefits are basically investors recruiting partnerships, as far as I can surmise, right? If you sell to schools or whatever, and you're like a company, you still are going to have people, as they evaluate your company, go look at your LinkedIn profile and see if there's like value alignment between the guy, which is enormously valuable, by the way.
Yeah.
So why do people not want to do it? Number one, it's hard. Like if you are not used to writing, it's incredibly difficult to write. Number two, the position I was in was I was like, kind of like we were talking about before. It's like, I know what I'm good at now. And if I reflect on 10 years ago, how I would make decisions related to things that I think that I'm good at now, which is like product marketing, whatever. Like I was playing T-ball then, and I am in the NBA now, or whatever the adage is, right? Like if you're telling me, having never posted on Twitter, let's say, that I should just put a half hour in my calendar and go tweet against LeBron James of Twitter, I'm going to tell you I have better things to do, because that's never going to work, right?
Yeah.
So how do you overcome that objection? I think that a lot can be accomplished with ghostwriters on LinkedIn. There's some good ghostwriters out there. They can spend an hour or two a week with you, and you can watch them, people who know how to post on LinkedIn, craft these posts which accurately articulate your values and beliefs and like whatever else. And then you see if you get the content bug or not. That's my suggestion. So like the worst case scenario is you pay a ghostwriter $3 or $5 grand a month for 3 months. And if you absolutely don't think anything's coming from it, you stop.
Yeah.
What I see happen a lot is people say this sentence, and it's the same sentence I said when I started, with a ghostwriter, mind you. I don't know exactly what this is doing, but it's doing something for me. Does that make sense? Like, I just hear it over and over again, right? So by the way, like now I know exactly what this is doing for me. I'm a total scientist with this. It consumes 20% of my week and 50% of my brain, or maybe like 35% of my week. But it's like the primary marketing vehicle for my entire company, right? So, and I'm obsessed with it. I just like think it's the most amazing thing in the world for me and my opportunity. But that's because of this perfect alignment that I explained to you. Like I will be able to drive a massive company through this channel. I would also still go down the ghostwriting route if I didn't have this alignment. And my goals would not be to have a LinkedIn brand like I have. It would literally just be, you know, I had this guy describe this to me one time. It's like, you know, here's the reason why you should start posting on LinkedIn today. The show Yellowstone. John Dutton does not have his mission, vision, values written on the wall. But if you watch Yellowstone, you sort of know what it's like to be a cowboy on John Dutton's ranch and whether or not you'd be interested in it or not, right? That's kind of the goal if you're not trying to do what I'm doing. Just give people, investors, you know, recruits, partnerships, whatever, give people the opportunity to go there and just get the feel of who you are, you know?
That's good.
And I think it's interesting when you say that, because I think a lot of people try to, they try to pitch, right? They try to pitch, they try to, push product, and real quickly, no one wants to pay attention to it, right? Versus, to your point, people engage with people. That's why the, personal brand resonates, right? Is because, to your point of the Yellowstone comparison, if people can get a feeling of who you are, that translates to who your company is. And that translates, by the way, it's still creating awareness of what you're doing, right? I mean,
I think it's creating better awareness. And,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And this is a strange thing. You can't, so people are always, a question I also get in addition to that one is like, well, how do you measure
Hmm.
the ROI of what you're doing?
The
And I'm like,
non-believers will ask you that.
and I'm like, this sounds really weird, because I do spend, I'm super ambitious with like this. I'm trying to do something very new in video for LinkedIn. And like, I basically have a filmmaker on staff helping me, starting to write narratives that are like perfect individual standalone LinkedIn posts. I made a docuseries last year. I'm making one again this year. So, but I'm psychotic about this. You don't need to do any of it. This is all like, I think the what makes this the most powerful thing in the world is I have the ability to make people feel like they are my best friend. That's why I do talking heads. That's why I am so, you should read some of my stuff. It's brutally like, read my last, I do a work in public company update once a month. Last month, and by the way, I was like declaring that we were going to be a unicorn 18 months ago in 12 months or something stupid like that, right? Last month's update, I was like, this is the 4th down month in a row, and we're down 2.3%, and I don't know when it's going to end. And it was just like, here is all the stuff that completely sucks. And people read it, they're like, how is this guy posting this? Like, does he, like, and people ask me that. They're like, literally, how do you write that? Like, I couldn't bring myself to tell that to my wife, like, let alone, be out there for everybody and your employees and everything else. But that is what I believe is creating this magic for me right now. It's providing this vehicle for people to know, to feel like they know me like a best friend. And now I go to an event that's in this ecosystem, and I can tell by the look in people's faces, they think we're friends, and I don't know who they are. A lot of them don't even say their name. A lot of them don't say, like, almost no one says their name when they introduce themselves to me. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
hey,
Adam, I'm hearing one thing, and then maybe this is part of like when you say you're a mad scientist with this. Like, I've got to ask your framework next, but vulnerability. People who were posting videos during the pandemic, whether they be like coaches, consultants, people with online clothing boutiques, the ones who crushed it were the ones that were talking about their life, but more specifically, they weren't afraid to talk about their losses, their failures, their fuck ups, whatever it was. And that was the thing where like I could hear my wife listening to these videos and she's like, oh my God, I just bought like, 6 sweaters from this woman. I'm like, do you know her? She's like, no, but I feel like we're best friends. And that is one of the things with video content that I think we connect with people. We don't really connect with businesses. And I have a whole presentation workshop I do on this. It's called Your Business Starts with Your Personal Brand. And I firmly believe that if you can get people to follow you as well as your business, and maybe your team can do that, you could possibly 10x the reach of your content on LinkedIn if you can get buy-in from your team and you have compelling content that is humanized, that is vulnerable, that is open. Because we want to connect with people. We don't really want to connect with retention.com or hustleleaders.com. We want to connect with the people because we're human. Is that fair?
Yep. I think you nailed it. If you were like, gun to your head, 2 words to describe your strategy, it would be vulnerable and authentic.
Love it.
That's it. Like, it's basically like, how can I be max vulnerable at the same time? What can I do that ChatGPT cannot?
Be human.
It's like ChatGPT can't tell you about how I sucked last month. You know what I mean? Like it is impossible. You can ask it to, but it cannot tell that story, right? Like, so yeah, I think you're nailing it. I mean, I just have found, that to be resonant
So Adam,
in what does well.
Is there, how do you get comfortable with that? Right. Because I got to imagine, I mean, you're human, right? The first few times you were going to do that post that was showing your vulnerability, authenticity. How did you get over that? What's your mindset then versus now?
By the way, it still sucks. Like, it was not fun at all to write that. I think this month we're up 1.6%, but like it was terrible to write and then post that. And then of course, I got this one woman on our exec team who's like, why the fuck do you have to put that stuff out? Like, it's horrible for the employees. Like, can you just like write them another one or something? I'm like, I hate to say it, but like, this is the most important thing that is going on in our company right now. And the employees are not the audience. And quite frankly, I think they appreciate knowing. You know what I mean?
Agree.
It like kind of sucks to read a little bit, but like you'd rather read that, and then you're probably proud to work for the guy who's willing to post that.
Yeah.
So it still sucks. I think that I have this, I got a super profitable growing SaaS business with no investors and have sort of made my name being this. So the momentum towards that, like, I'm committed at this point. I mean, if I were not 1,000% committed, there is no way I would have posted that last month. No way.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it hurt that bad. Like, it just sucks, right? Like, but I'm so committed. And then that begs the question, all right, well, why'd you start doing it? So kind of what Chris said, it's like, I thought that we were going for a unicorn. We had a very low penetration in this target market we were going after. And I was like, what's the quickest way to spread awareness in the world today? It is not a company social media profile. It is not running ads. It's building up a personal profile on some social media platform. The question was, which one? I'm a focus guy. So it's like, let's start with one. And the one that seemed the most compelling to gather the early audience the quickest was LinkedIn, because there's an imbalance between creators and active users that doesn't exist on the other platforms anymore. And it will soon not exist on LinkedIn as more and more people start doing it. So that was where I started. And, it's kind of like, I had done some kind of shocking Facebook ad campaigns before. They were just funny and outrageous, and they kind of leaned into the privacy aspect about our product, and it like really like it trolled these privacy people, and then I'd like insult them from the brand account to make the ad work. They just lose their minds, and just like
Love that.
Kind of, I was exposed to the machine and how it works. So it's like,
yeah, what
do you do to stand out? Because like it's not only with social media; it's any content, any advertising since the beginning of time. You cannot be like, this is my view of marketing. You cannot be like everyone else, or it's just, if you are completely different, you will stop people in their tracks. So it's like, what can I do? Right. So I'd seen a couple people do work in Publix, not as well as I would have liked to have seen. So I was like, me at this point, I had 12 million ARR, and it was before I hired a bunch of people. It's 6 people, right? So it's a very weird combo for SaaS, right? Normally people have 50 employees and 12 million ARR. So I was like, I'm going to post my P&L on LinkedIn, do monthly updates, and do this crazy work in public, and accompany it with a docuseries as I try to scale this company and shoot for the moon. So that was my attempt. And just inherent in that strategy is, it was the promise. It's like, I'm going to share W's and L's with you. And then you realize that the L's are what nobody else shares, you just see it from like the reach that you get on the posts that are like really tough. And then you also see it, like, people love to see you win too, but I think they love to see you win more when they see you lose too.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
You know what I mean?
That's exactly, because it's super easy. Because, well, I mean, I even did a video the other day. This was maybe a month or two ago, and it was just I left a meeting with some of our team, and I was just super excited about it. Did a quick video, and actually, one of my friends texted me on the side. He's like, "Did you just make that up?" I'm like, no, I didn't just make it up. What are you talking about? And he's like, well, I see so many people like, excited about something they did today. He's like, my day sucked, but it was interesting because it was exactly that. It was, and you're kind of connecting the dots for me. It was, okay, is that, if he was saying it, right, other people might be thinking it too, because it's like, well, if you're sharing positive all the time, how do we know what the dichotomy is? Because maybe they're not even real, because all it is good stuff. And we know life is filled with bad stuff too.
Yep.
So yeah, it's fascinating.
Adam, have you ever read the book Blue Ocean Strategy?
I think that I have read, I've read so many business books. I know that title.
So
what's the like byline or whatever?
I don't necessarily know. I could give you a synopsis, but when you're talking about your email business earlier on in the show, in the marketing, the one thing I think of is that you mentioned a few times how you're in a highly competitive industry, which so often would be conferred to as a red ocean, just full of sharks, blood in the water. And in the book, they talk about how there are a lot of people who know they need to differentiate. They know they need to stand out, marketers like you and me. And they say, some people are swimming from the red ocean to the blue ocean, but they're like forever stuck in between. It seems to me that you understood early on, even going back to the email days, that you had to differentiate. And I've said this a lot so often is, you could be better or best in class, but you're still ultimately a commodity. It's not until you put yourself in that blue ocean where, maybe you're in SaaS and maybe you can identify users. There are plenty of other people who do similar things in the world to that. But when did you know you always had to kind of stand alone in your own class? Because it seems like that happened a long time ago for you.
Yeah. So it definitely didn't have, so like, just very early in my journey, I didn't appreciate that concept at all. I was like, commodities good because they're big markets and like we can just be cheaper and not better or whatever. Right. And then this idea of like, because it was like, we just need to match the features of the incumbent and then be cheaper. And that's like not a strategy. Unless you're 10 times cheaper, then it's a strategy, or you're free or something. Right. But I, not very quickly, because it was a long time, but like there was a moment in which I was like, oh, I need to be doing things they're not doing, and then I didn't really feel the absolute glory of having something that was completely new to people until retention.com, which used to be called Get Emails. And the reason, it's like a fringe market, gray area. Like there's reasons people are staying out of the market, which I love. Like, it's like, by all means, call me a scumbag, like I'm going to just enjoy this market with no competitors and while it lasts. Right. Like, so it is, it's like this bar that I now have in my head for things that I want to pursue. It's like, I just know how hard it is to operate in one of those saturated markets that's all commoditized, and how glorious it is if you can somehow operate in this blue ocean space where there's not even another option to contemplate. It's like, well, you don't have it and it's dead obvious why you should use it. So just do it. Right. Like, kind of like what I was describing on the B2B side. It's like, wait, you wouldn't do that and it's free? Okay, I'm in. Yeah, that yes, that was the evolution. It was like, it was very quick to, on the second business. Like on the first business, I would run Facebook ads, and if I spent $5,000, I'd maybe get like $100 in subscriptions off of that. The first month of the second business, the first month with a crappy video that I just put on Facebook and ran $5,000 ad spends on, it got $10,000 of monthly recurring revenue. That's the difference, right? Like, like that is literally the difference. You're like one of 200 email newsletter vendors trying to run a Facebook ad for a 14-day trial. And then with this, it's like, I was the only person they had ever heard say that they could get an email address of someone who didn't fill out a form.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that
That's
will
amazing.
stop you in your tracks. You know, if you are the right person to get served that ad, it will stop you in your tracks.
It would
Yeah,
still stop me in my tracks because I just want to know how that freaking thing works. Man, talk about a cheat code.
Yeah. How is it legal? How does it work? What do I send? That's like the big three that everyone asks for, 5 years in a row or whatever.
So tell us about retention.com. For everyone listening, there's bound to be a lot of listeners who are like, yeah, we need that technology. How does it work? What is it?
So it's for e-commerce stores entirely. Everybody else, rb2b.com. So if you want to use it to like help with sales or like help with demand gen marketing, rb2b.com. Retention, business to business. That's the abbreviation. But retention.com for e-commerce stores, put a script on your site. People hit your site. We figure out who they are. We can either add them directly into your email list, or there's this big problem in e-commerce where there's these super lucrative emails that get sent out in an automated fashion, like abandoned cart, somebody looks at a product page and they leave without buying. Somebody abandons their checkout, right? The problem is the storefront doesn't know who that person is unless they're logged in. So like who's logged into joeschmosocks.com? Nobody. Right? Like literally nobody is logged into joeschmosocks.com. So we help expand the audiences of all of these like very lucrative bottom of the funnel email and SMS communications. That's what that product does. And then our B2B is just, it's a weapon. It just, it feeds you leads of people who are on your site so that you can do whatever you want with them. Connect with them on LinkedIn, send them a message, put them in an email flow in Apollo or, Outreach or like SalesLoft or whatever. Same core technology. It's just, recognizing, kind of like, it's de-anonymizing these persistent identifiers in people's browsers that are used by ad tech to serve targeted ads, and connecting them to personal profiles.
So cool.
Indeed.
So what, if you were to forecast the next 2 years for you, your businesses, what do you see on the horizon?
I'm really excited about continuing to like write the playbook on this personal brand, to grow a software business situation. I think I'm fascinated by it. And I think that's what's happening now is I'm slowly becoming this entire world's best friend, with maybe 10% of them absolutely hating everything I'm about and stand for, which is part of it. But like 90% of them, the group of high affinity is growing. And if someone feels like they're your best friend, you can sell them anything you want. So like just expanding, the portfolio of products that this our B2B thing is, that's where I see it going.
So when you say expanding the suite of products, what is the suite or going to be?
So like it's a data company at the end of the day. So there's a database underneath it, something like ZoomInfo or Apollo.io, if you're familiar with those. It's like contact databases that people use to sales prospect. So we will very likely next year we already have the data. So like we will productize something like that, like a contact data app. You can also, there's a sales application for the de-anonymization, but there's also a marketing application where people want insights on their traffic. It's like what pages are being hit by what titles in what industries, to grading SEO basically, and like where do I need to run more traffic to like whatever. So that's an application. There's like a CRM enrichment application where it's like, you can sort of like with a complete database, you can add information to your CRM so people can better segment and, target however they want to do. Yeah, I mean, those are the obvious ones to me.
That's exciting. A lot of opportunity in the world of business. Excited. Adam, thank you for being here today. This was probably a conversation that could last another 2 hours. But for sake of time, we're gonna tie this one up. And where can people go? If you haven't mentioned retention.com a couple times already, where can people go to connect with you or learn more about the business?
Sure. My LinkedIn is amazing, so you should check it out. Adam Robinson, Retention Adam. Hit me up there, connect with me there, follow me there. You can email me at adam@retention.com. Check rb2b.com out. That's all I got going on.
Great content, great stuff. If you want to follow a thought leader, which is what Adam is. Adam, thank you for being here. It was great, very insightful. Nice to talk to someone in the SaaS space, and I can't wait to have you back. So for all you listeners out there, thanks for tuning in to another one. We appreciate the ears. Until next time, peace.
Thank you for being part of the Hustle Nation. If you're serious about raising the bar in your personal and professional life and willing to go all in on your success, head over to hustleleaders.com. Here you can get access to our Hustle Productivity ebook, attend our Hustle Masterclass, or challenge yourself to the 30-day Hustle Challenge. Pairing these tools and training with the Hustle Nation podcast will help you advance to a whole new level. Until next time, stay hungry and inspire those around you to hustle.